What's the worst stadium you've had to call a game, and what's the least favorite place to go?
I think my least favorite, and it has nothing to do.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's Auburn.
It's a terrible press box.
The broadcast location.
Now we're talking, Eli.
It is a terrible broadcast. It's not even arguable.
No.
Beat Everyone is brought to you by Broadway Joe's Fantasy Sports, inspired by football legend Joe Namath. Embrace the thrill of daily fantasy sports like never before in a new app coming soon. Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan. I'm here with AL.com's Michael Casagrande, and we are also here with the legendary Eli Gold, longtime voice of the Crimson Tide. This is the Golden Age, and we hit the road this week, Eli. We're going to ask you about calling road games, the best and worst stadiums, the best and worst environments games, all of that. But first, coming off of last week's episode where we talked to you about a lot of former Alabama football coaches, we have a listener voicemail. They want to know a little bit more about what you think. So here we go. I'm going to play it for you now.
Hey, this is Jason from Tuscaloosa, and just had a question for Eli. It's about the coaching transitions from Fran to Price to Shula, in particular Price. There was sort of a division of opinion on whether to sort of forgive and move on or whether to cut ties. And some of the players were pretty vocal about, keep them, give them another chance. And of course, the president was on the other side. I'm just curious, as somebody closely connected to the program at the time and having watched Fran's departure, which had to have been a low point, at least up until then. Where did you fall on that? Were you more on the side of, hey, we need to keep this guy and give him a chance? Or were you like, this is below Alabama integrity, we need to move on? All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Good question. Number one, I didn't think that much about it. As I had mentioned, I think it was on last week's show, I respected the decision that Dr. Witt made to move on. I just didn't want to see the university get embarrassed. And I thought they were being embarrassed nationally by the behavior that had gone on. So I was not adverse to seeing a change from Mike Price. He was a great coach, great guy. Like I said in last week's show, I had tons of time to sit around and shoot the breeze with him and get to know him, and he was very nice. But it did not hurt me any to see him dismissed.
Awesome, thank you, Eli.
Sure.
Now we hit the road.
Hitting the road, yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about in this business. The ability to travel, to go to cool places, to go to different cities.
Great restaurants.
Great restaurants.
Yep.
So what was your favorite, I guess we'll start it with SEC cities. What was your favorite SEC city to visit?
I love going to Baton Rouge.
Same.
Because I love Cajun food. I did not keep up this physique of mine without visiting many restaurants over the years. And there are some great eateries in the Bayou. And you could, get in through New Orleans and then just kind of graze your way across the Bayou to Baton Rouge, and we did that many times over. And of course, Tiger Stadium was a magnificent atmosphere. The broadcast booth wasn't great, and so on. And I think, as I recounted earlier in the series a number of weeks ago, some of the worst nights that I had were in Baton Rouge because I was sick or I had lost my voice. So from that standpoint, I didn't have a lot of fondness, but I enjoyed going to Baton Rouge. It's a nice hotel, great food, and more often than not, it was an Alabama victory.
Yeah, I have to say, whenever I get asked what's my favorite SEC place to go at Tiger Stadium at night, that crowd, it's unlike any other places, and it was always amped up for an Alabama game. There was a little bit different, I'm sure, than an 11 o'clock game against a local team, but always the best place to watch a game.
The only thing I didn't like is we didn't have very comfortable seats in the radio booth. It's funny what you think about. And of course, my rear end is, a little larger than the average bear. And I wasn't comfortable in the chairs that we had in the broadcast booth. But that's a personal problem, I guess, more than anything else.
Eli, you're in a lot of stadiums. I'm going to ask you a side question because you brought up food just now. What's the best concession food at a football game, in your opinion?
I don't know, because I've never eaten concession food.
They don't get that in the press box.
You know
what?
Our own food. Although I got to tell you, to answer that, my answer would be Michigan State. And I'll tell you why. Because at Spartan Stadium, Alabama was always off the week of Michigan State. That's just the way the schedule fell. And Sports USA Radio, for whom I did the NFL, they would also ask me to do Saturday games when Alabama was off. So I guess I've done 4 or 5 Michigan State games. And do you know that they have a concession stand in the press box in Lansing, in East Lansing? They don't serve you a meal. They got a concession stand. They give you a card that was good for 2 hot dogs. But anything beyond that, you had to buy yourself. You want fries?
For the press?
For the press.
It's like the Major League Baseball. Everybody had to pay for no meals were free.
No meals are free.
Cheapskates.
Yep.
Everything. You want a soft pretzel? I love those big pretzels.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
That's $3.50.
Oh, my gosh.
Right there in the press box. The card was good for 2 hot dogs or 1 hamburger or whatever it might have been. So that's the only place I have sampled of concession food.
Well, now I'm glad Alabama gave them the beatings in 2015 and 2011 or whatever the year, 2010. That's ridiculous.
But that's just the way they do it there.
Well, was there a friendly rivalry or unfriendly maybe with SEC broadcasting teams, like the team, like your counterparts, right? Like the Auburns, the Georgias, the LSUs. Like, did you get along with them?
We got along wonderfully.
You didn't hate anybody. There was no
Yeah,
press
who did you
box
hate?
fights.
I didn't hate anybody.
Oh,
No.
I didn't. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
We're trying to sell some.
Yeah. No, I didn't hate anybody. Life's too short to hate people. It really is. I just, some guys were more communicative than others. But
who was the least?
Yeah, the least communicative.
The least communicative might be the Georgia crew. And again, for no reason, and they're kind of quiet. And I didn't think I didn't think twice about it. It's always, hi, how are you? Knock on the window, go in, compare notes, talk about pronunciations, all the standard stuff. But I would talk with Andy Burcham. I would talk to Jim Fife. I would talk to Rod Bramlett. I would talk to, Jim Hawthorne when he was at LA, whoever it is, probably more than I talked to the Georgia guys. But, everybody was wonderful. John Ward and, going back to the older set, the Jack Crystals of the world and so on. Everybody, we all got along very, very well. We realized the kind of jobs we had, and we were very lucky and proud of that factor. It's just that the Georgia guys seemed to be a little more quiet than some of the others. That was about it. And that's after Larry Munson. He wasn't quiet at all.
Oh, yeah. So who was the best? Who was the best? Which broadcaster do you think, if you had to rank them, who was like the guy that you looked up to maybe?
Well, when I first got the job, I didn't know what it should pay. I had no idea, none whatsoever. And that first year, I took whatever they offered me. Whatever the offer was, where do I sign? Then I realized that I was being undercompensated. So I called John Ward, the legendary voice of the Tennessee Vols, and I went up to Knoxville. I made a trip to Knoxville for a weekend and arranged to meet with him and pick his brain about a number of things. I didn't know a lot of things about the SEC. And one of the things I asked him was to, please confide in me what I ought to be making. What should this job pay? And everybody had different deals. John got compensation, but he also was an ad agency guy. So the Tennessee Power Company, he got a commission off of that. Everybody's package was a little different. But he said, you ought to get X to do these ball games. And, so I was able to talk to all those guys. And John was one of them who was very key in that. And, of course, in the more modern era, I was always close with the Auburn guys, even to this time, Andy Burcham and I, we talk and text all the time, just checking on me. And I check on him. We get along wonderfully. The same was with Rod and with Jim Fife before that. We're all friends. And, you'll find also that the worker bees are friends. The people who work in the sports information offices and the other, they're pretty much good friends. The fans don't quite get that. They find
we don't need to ruin everything. We're trying to.
Yeah, I'm just telling the truth.
We're pulling the curtain back. We're all good friends in the end, and we don't hate each other.
I'm just telling the truth. When I was there for the Iron Bowl this year, I sat and talked with a bunch of the Auburn people after the game because I was riding back with Tom Stipe, and I had to wait for him to get off the air and then pack up all the equipment and what have you. So I probably sat there for an hour, and we just talked, me and Andy and a bunch of the guys. Heck, Stan White is my insurance man. I mean, my insurance guy retired, and I said I needed an insurance man from the same company, and Stan had as an agency, and we've been friends, and he is my insurance man.
Well, that's a trivia question.
You can't, the way I look at it, you can't run your life based on 12 or 13 games. My daughter wanted at one point to be a veterinarian. It turned out she didn't. But when she was going into college, she was thinking about becoming a vet. And I said, Elise, if you're going to become a vet, you need to go to Auburn. You need to go to Mississippi State. You need to go to LSU. One of those three schools in our area. And I said, you can be the most obnoxious Alabama fan on that campus, but you cannot decide on something for your life based on 12 or 13 football games. And it's just the way I have done it. Obviously, you may not agree, but judging by your bobblehead moves of your head over there, but I just can't allow my life to be determined by the outcome of a football game or the like or dislike of somebody else. Life is one thing, the sports is another, and I've found the way to compromise.
I have family members who are diehard Alabama fans, and they went to pharmacy school at Auburn, and they suffered through it, but now they're pharmacists.
That's it. You got to do what you got to do. You're making a lifetime decision based on 12 football games.
Yeah, so you have to make that. Yeah, you got to make sacrifice, don't you? Yeah, and living in Auburn may be a big sacrifice.
I don't know if I'd phrase it like that, but
I don't know. Well, we're going to take a break now, Eli. When we come back, we're going to talk about non-conference games. You're listening to The Golden Age on Beat Everyone. We're sitting here with the legendary Eli Gold, so come back. Welcome back to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with Michael Casagrande, and we're here with Eli Gold. And Eli, we're going to talk about non-conference games now.
Okay.
There aren't too many of them, I guess, that you've had to call recently on the road for football. What are some of the better places you've been outside of the SEC?
Well, certainly Penn State. We've talked about Beaver Stadium. That's a great location. I've enjoyed doing games in Tampa. Most of those have been for postseason play, bowl game play and so on. I've enjoyed doing games exclusive of Alabama. When Sports USA will send me to Baylor to do a game there. That's an interesting atmosphere and a brand new stadium there. There have been a lot of places, to sit here and start thinking. There have just been a lot of places where I've gone over the years and have enjoyed doing the games. Hawaii was great because it was Hawaii. The stadium was nothing spectacular, but it's a historical stadium. And of course, you turn around and look right out behind the visiting radio booth, and you're looking right towards the Arizona Memorial and Pearl Harbor and all of that. So it was, so I've been able to go to a lot of places. I sure have.
What's the worst stadium you've had to call a game, and what's their least favorite place to go?
Wow. I think my least favorite, and it has nothing to do.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's Auburn.
It's a terrible press box.
The broadcast location.
Now we're talking, Eli.
It is a terrible broadcast. It's not even arguable.
No, and I say it not because it's Auburn. Trust me.
Same here.
And when we used to go there and work from the 40-yard line, it was spectacular. That's where it was. That's where we were working for the kick six game before they moved. But you knew how bad it was when my phone rang and it was the late Rod Bramblett. You knew it was bad. The phone rang and, hey, Rod, what's going on? I just wanted to shoot the breeze. And I needed to let you know that we're changing your broadcast location here at Jordan Hare. I said, okay. He said, they're moving everybody to this new building that they've built, and you're going to be behind the end zone to the right of where we used to work. So down in that direction. He said, but just so you know, we're not doing it just for you. He goes, that's where we're going to be also. He said, and that's where your athletic director is going to be. He said, that's just where, he said, they just are taking away those seats in the middle that used to be the press box, and they are going to now make them into high-priced suites. So the only place to put you guys was, and all of us, was in the end zone. So as I detailed when we talked the other day, a while ago, about that final play, the long throw into the end zone, that happened about 160 yards from where I was sitting. So the worst one is Auburn. Dallas is not great because, again, you're in the end zone, but at least you've got a good angle. You're in the corner of the end zone. You've got the supersized TV screen that you can cheat on and watch the play that way. But, a lot of the places now are going to those corner broadcast booths. That's what it was like in Phoenix or in Glendale. You do a game there, you're in the corner. You go to do a Cleveland Browns game, you're in the corner. You go to do a Redskins game, you're in the corner. They just won't give away the prime seating anymore, except to television. That's in their contract. But everybody else, national radio, local radio, visiting team radio, the lone exception is my favorite place, and that's Foxborough, where Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, who was and may still be the chairman of the broadcast committee in the NFL, he has every broadcast at the 50-yard line, about 40 or so, 50 rows, not even that many, 40 or so, up off the field. You're right at the 50. There's home team radio, visiting team radio, national radio, Spanish-speaking radio, and then television, all right there at midfield. And it's the best broadcast. It's like a bunker. If you look at a game from the stadium at Patriots Field there at Gillette Stadium, you'll see there's like a bunker. In there is also a men's room and a ladies' room. And it's everything you need. So there are some great spots, but right now, the worst is probably Auburn, simply because you're behind the end zone and it's so tough. Even a routine play, you can't tell if the ball's at the 17 or the 15. You can't. You just have to guess at it.
Yeah, so
that's not good.
It seems like a nightmare to call from 100 yards back, and Auburn did that.
Well,
right?
It's not so much that Auburn did it.
Well,
a lot of people are doing it, but in this league,
they did it.
Yes,
yeah.
In this league, Auburn did it. When Alabama moved the press box, now the broadcasts are on the 35-yard line. A whole lot better than what we're dealing with on the Plains.
But somebody needs to do something. Is there ever any temptation?
Spoken like a true Alabama fan right there.
I'm looking out for you, Eli.
Thank you.
Is there ever any temptation on that note to paint the opposing team in a bad light,
No.
like for the fans?
No.
Even when you really want to?
No.
Okay.
Never. The fans aren't to worry about my circumstances or many times I'll talk about when I'm at Auburn, I'll talk about the play going left to right. I will put myself mentally into a seat at the 50-yard line and the play's going left to right or right, even though it's actually coming to me.
You can't say up and down, can
you?
you?
You can't say coming towards us or away from us. The biggest problem is waiting for the spot of the football. Sometimes you can't see it. The TV is usually 7 seconds behind on delay, so you can't get an instant call. You don't know. You just don't know. And and when you're looking at a goal line play, if the officials are looking at it, where is the ball? Is it at the 3? Whatever it might be. So you have to wait for it to come up on the scoreboard, and then I'll say, all right, it'll be a 2nd down and goal from the 3 or whatever it might be. So no, it's difficult. It's the most challenging place we work nowadays.
I just don't think I could resist being like a pro wrestling announcer. Like if I was on the mic, calling the games, and like I'd just be in there like, this place stinks. The hot dogs are cold. The Coke is warm. That kind of a thing.
Problem is, I'm friends with all of those people there. I know them. They apologize constantly. They constantly apologize. Andy and everybody and the PR, the SIDs, all those, they constantly apologize. But they didn't move me. The management did. Well, not just me. All of it. Every visiting team. And again, they moved the athletic director, from Alabama. He sits in the end zone now behind the behind the goalposts. And they've moved their own people. I mean, Andy and them, they sit right down in the end zone with us. So it's not like they're picking on us. It's just they chose to sell the prime real estate as a luxury suite. And I understand that. But yeah, it is a tough place from which to work.
Well, Ben doesn't understand it. He's going to march down to Auburn right now, and he's going to take care of this. He's going to
see you, Ben.
He's going to move us back to the 50.
Yeah.
I'm on a crusade.
There you go.
To do that. I wanted to ask you about cupcake games. Speaking of non-conference cupcake games, in quotations,
Careful.
obviously.
Careful.
Yeah, I know, right? Like when they play Western Kentucky and other teams like that. Like how do you keep people's interest in those games? Because obviously, more often than not, they're one-sided. There have obviously been examples like Louisiana Monroe and some other teams, Georgia Southern, that gave Alabama more trouble than it was worth.
Yeah.
How do you keep people's attention? Because I mean, you mentioned it even in the national championship game with Notre Dame. That got
way out of hand. Yeah.
But yeah. On those games, like people might not be quite as tuned in as they typically are.
Well, number one, for me, every game is the most important game. And I know that sounds like a bunch of BS or like coach speak, but it's the truth. I'll tell you, if I screwed up on a so-called cupcake game, using your term, I would get vilified by the fan base the same way as if I screwed up on the LSU game. People listen and hang on every word you say, and they're quick to jump on your mistakes. So if you think it's not a big game, just go out and screw up. Or for the players, if you don't think it's a big game, just go out and lose it. Find out how big it really was. So I don't think about that. If it gets to be terribly one-sided, the good news is we get to talk about new players, because by then the coaches have gone to their second and third string, whatever position. You're talking about guys who, other than the A-Day game, the spring game, you may never talk about again. So that's always interesting. It's almost like a preview of what's going to be coming your way next year. So there's always something to find. There's always stories to tell, regardless of who you're playing and what the score might be.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal of the coaching staff too. Like Nick Saban, unless, the Citadel or Chattanooga makes it a game, his hope is that a lot of players are going to get to play so that they can have the reps and everything. So that's true for the broadcasting booth,
too. It is. Same thing. Everybody has a story to tell. Every player has a story. They've come from somewhere. They've done something, and you get a chance to talk about that fourth string running back or that fifth string running back who, to that point, you've never mentioned on the air.
And sometimes those games are fun. I mean, that Citadel game, I remember in 2018, I believe it was.
It was they kicked
a field goal at halftime to tie it. It was 10-10 at halftime.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember they played the fight song after the game. You would have thought they had won the game.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern. I remember being on the field, 2011. It was a 42-21. They sang the fight song in the corner with their helmets in the air and a live eagle flapping its wings. Like, you would have thought they had just won the game.
And these kids are out there after the game with their telephones taking pictures of Bryant-Denny Stadium. We've played here. I've been there. For somebody, it's a big game. And for those kids, again, who rarely play, for mom and them and grandma and grandpa to be able to hear their son or grandson's name mentioned on the broadcast, I have heard from so many people, man, I can't thank you for saying little Bobby's name. Well, you don't have to thank me. He was in the game. And of course, I'm going to talk about him. But it means a lot to a lot of people. We often are too close to it and take too many things for granted.
Very true.
Yeah.
Non-national championship bowl game. What was your favorite? Do you have a favorite that you can remember, like a Liberty Bowl or an Independence Bowl or one that might surprise us?
It's funny you bring it up. I've done like 5 or 6 Independence Bowls because Sports USA had the rights to that, and they always asked me, "Would you mind, heading over to Shreveport?" And I was happy to do it. I was glad to do it. I did. There've been a number of them. I thought the Alabama-Ohio State game in Orlando years ago was very, very good. I remember the game against Colorado in Miami. That was the, whatever they called it, Blockbuster Bowl at that time. That was an interesting ball game. And then the next day I had to fly from there to Hawaii to do basketball. And I walked into the arena just as the tip-off was getting ready to go. Tom Roberts was there. We had sent Tom in advance, but that was a long trip overnight.
As long as you can get from the United States.
Exactly, from Miami out to Honolulu. I don't know. There were, but you laugh about that Independence Bowl. That first year with Nick Saban, that got him to a winning record and really got everybody in gear for what next year was going to be like, which I believe was the opener against Clemson the next season. And that kind of set the stage for the rebirth of Alabama under Nick Saban. So there have been a few of those that have come to mind.
Do you any big perks for broadcasters when you go to bowl games? Like players, obviously.
Never.
They even put dweebs like us media folks, like we get a pullover jacket or something like that.
Rarely,
really,
rarely. I would say in all the 36 years of bowls or 35, whatever it's been that I've done, there might have been maybe 4 times I was given a T-shirt or something. No, the media is included in a lot of stuff. The broadcast crews rarely get included.
Did you ever get a championship ring though when they won a championship?
I did. Yes, the university has always been wonderful. They have sent us championship rings for conference championships, national titles, whatever it might be. So that is, and I normally wear them, but I've lost so much weight. You can't tell. I'm still a big boy, but I lost because of my illness. I lost about 140 pounds. And these rings now, even my wedding ring, it'll just basically slides right off, and the national title rings in them just literally shoot off my fingers if I move my hands like that. So they're sitting at home, but
you ever try them all at the same time and just
No, I never have. I think the next time when Hulk Hogan comes over, I might say,
"Come on, like now." In the mirror, just flexing with your rings. Like,
no,
which one do you decide to wear? Like, how do you pick?
I always wear the most recent.
Ah,
that's what I do. I wear the most recent one. I wore the 92 ring for 17 years, and then now they've been rotating far more quickly.
Yeah, they go out of style pretty quickly.
They do, but the last one, the one that I wear is the last one that the team earned, and that's how it'll stay.
Well,
on that note.
Yeah, on that note, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks, Eli. We
always
really appreciate
a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, always good, and we hope you come back again. This has been Beat Everyone. If you have a question for Eli, please leave us a voicemail at 205-523-4809. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And for Michael Casagrande and Eli Gold, I'm Ben Flanagan. Thank you so much. Beat Everyone is brought to you by Broadway Joe's Fantasy Sports, inspired by football legend Joe Namath. Embrace the thrill of daily fantasy sports like never before in a new app coming soon.